because I barely can. It's episode 50 of Inspired Coach Podcast. How did that happen? I am honestly not sure, but we are celebrating today this 50th episode of the show. And oh my goodness, can I just start out by saying today, thank you so very much to absolutely every one of you who listens, downloads, replies to, cheers on, shares our episodes, sends us emails about so many different things and ways that you engage with the show. I'm so delighted. We are so delighted as an academy that so many of you are loving it. And, you know, the fact that we are one of the top ranking in the top 10, often sitting in the top 5 life coaching podcasts in Australia is truly phenomenal. And that is a testament to all of you. We can create great things, but if they're not received well and you don't use them in your life and engage with them in your business, then they don't have nearly as much meaning as they can when those things happen. And so thank you very much. And we could not think of a more delightful person to be our guest for our 50th episode than Beautiful You Coaching Academy trainer Marlous Teh, who is here today to talk to us about cultivating your coaching confidence. Marlous is a certified leadership, mindset and energy coach and a trainer for emerging life coaches. She's also a community leadership mentor, facilitator and a TEDx speaker alumni. Marlous supports her clients to embody their unique gifts so they can cultivate their coaching confidence and start and grow soul-aligned businesses. She's got a decade's experience in marketing, events, and business development and is devoted to helping emerging coaches develop their self-leadership and cultivate heart-centered, sustainable businesses that are steeped in joy and purpose and well-being and fulfilment for themselves, their communities and the world. Oh, what a beautiful bio. What a beautiful person and what beautiful work Marlous is doing. Now, as you can tell from that intro, we could have had Marlous come on the show to talk about so many different things as an expert interviewee. The one that we chose is about how to cultivate your coaching confidence. And something I want to share with you ahead of this episode is that in very typical, raw, open, genuine, authentic Marlous style, Marlous shares in this episode some vulnerable moments about her own coaching in early days and how she remains deeply committed to embodying her own version of coaching confidence and working on her coaching skills. Enjoy this episode ahead with Marlous about cultivating your coaching confidence. I think it is one that has particular relevance for you if you are thinking about becoming a coach or are an emerging coach right now. Marlous Teh, welcome to Inspired Coach Podcast. I am absolutely delighted to have you on as our guest today for this expert interview.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie. I'm just overjoyed to be here with you today.
It is really important for me to let everybody know right from the outset of our time together that Marlous is not only a very beautiful and treasured alumni member of the Beautiful You Coaching Academy community, she is also a trainer with us. And we are delighted to have her as part of our team and teaching and supporting and guiding upcoming young coaches. We are here today to talk about something, Marlous, that I know for new and emerging coaches you are so passionate about, and that is helping them to cultivate their coaching confidence. But I want to start, before we get there, I want to start talking about you more. And I would love to know from you, when you first trained and became a coach, and it was not anything I know that you'd ever done before, what was the thing that you had to work on most as a beginner coach about your own confidence?
I love this question. The thing I had to work on most when I started as a coach and for my confidence definitely is in the realm of having to let go of what I thought a confident, great, amazing, powerful coach should be, doing what they need to look like, how they need to be. Yeah, I'll start there. I'll
Okay.
start there.
So, yeah, okay. So there's a lot. Okay, let's start there because there's a lot to unpack there. And I know that you're not alone in having that thought and needing to do that unpacking. So let's just go straight for it. What did you think? I've got a funny feeling it's different now, but what did you think a really great coach was that you had to unravel from?
Yeah. Wow, it's actually, thank you for this question, Julie, because it's kind of taking me back on a little journey to think how it was for me at the very, very beginning, almost 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I remember the first few sessions that I was working with starting off with pro bono clients. I was so nervous and anxious that I didn't know what was to come or what I could expect from a session. And so I felt like I needed to know exactly how to, one, conduct myself as the coach. I needed to know exactly what, and with that, exactly what questions to ask, being in anticipation of what the client might say so that I know exactly the right answer. Basically knowing exactly how the session would flow and go. That was at the beginning what I thought a great coach would be. Knowing, what to expect, what to say, and how to go about getting the client to make the most progress and take the most action, that was all kind of driven by me as the coach.
Yes, okay. And you know what? I'm quite sure, Marlous, that there are probably people listening right now going, is she talking about me? Because they'll literally be thinking and feeling to themselves, oh my gosh, that's how I feel too. And that's, where I am at the moment. And of course, that's perfectly okay. And we know that when it comes to human interaction, there are so many things that we cannot predict and control, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to. We do want to. We want to know, what's coming up, what's happening, all of those kinds of things. And so something is telling me that if this is what you believed at the beginning was necessary for you to be a great coach or what made a great coach, that you now have a different perspective on that. And so tell us about the shift then, because if you now know that knowing exactly what's coming up, knowing what to say all the time, you being the driver of your client's actions, if you now know that that's not what makes up a good coach, how did you shift that and what do you believe makes a good one now?
So that took probably a little bit or a lot of stumbling at the beginning, just getting really present to how my desire to conduct myself and to have all the questions that I want to ask in a session, right there and ready when I go into a session, and using that approach and realizing that that didn't quite work or that didn't feel quite the way I had hoped. And so I very quickly realized that that wasn't the way to go about being a great coach. And it actually certainly didn't build my confidence as a coach. because there was this, there was this pressure, there was this tension and just friction. And the moment when I became aware of that and realized like, oh, this doesn't feel right in my gut, it doesn't feel like there's a flow of conversation and, what the client is able to discover for themselves. And so I knew something had to shift. And of course, now I know that to be a great and confident coach is an ongoing process that one cultivates. And when I say that, I mean that you need to be really clear around what your role is as a coach, right? So when clients choose to work with us, they obviously I see it as like a partnership. They want to be in partnership with you as their coach. And so what's your role as a coach? You hold and facilitate the space for them to take action towards their deepest intentions and desires and goals. And so my relationship to how I was to conduct myself as a coach shifted in simply releasing that one, well, I say simply, but it was about releasing that I am not responsible for how the session is supposed to go minute to minute, moment to moment, question by question. And that there is a lot you can work with as a coach, that you just simply tune into, ground into, be present to what's there for the client and be a mirror. And I speak to the concept of being a vessel for our clients rather than the conductor of, a coaching session. And so releasing that control, releasing that it is not up to me how the session goes, but rather that I have a role as the coach to mirror back what I am witnessing the client discovering, and where I sense and feel and really see and be present to where they deeply desire to go in line with their goals and intentions and desires. And so when I started to realize that this is a process that I can keep cultivating by putting the focus on really owning my role as the coach and the scope of practice and what it is that I do and don't do, and what makes it feel in flow and aligned for me when I am being a coach of service, as a vessel, as a vehicle, as a partner to support the client in discovering what it is that they want. And this idea of being the vessel is so that the client can really explore and discover and marinate into what I call like the liquid gold that they find. And whatever they feel inclined or called to further discover, with, of course, a little bit of gentle holding of me, of that container of the space, but not to direct the flow or the course of what it is that they're in process of discovering. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Marlous. You have such a beautiful, eloquent way of explaining things that are incredibly heart-centered. And as I was both listening to, watching, and feeling you talk about those things, I actually felt myself relax. Like I just exhaled, I thought that was really beautiful, because there's so much permission giving in what you say there. And it sounds to me as well like you going on that journey of what you initially thought made up a fantastic coach, a good coach, to where you are in your own process and what you know for yourself about this now. it sounds to me like you've released an enormous amount of pressure on yourself along the way. Would you say that's pretty true?
Yeah, definitely spot on, Julie. A lot of pressure in releasing, what I thought was to be a great coach and how I hold space. And a lot of trusting and surrendering, really. Releasing that idea, that perception of what it is to be a great, confident, powerful coach. And just simply being present to the client, their journey, and also, if I might add, another aspect of this process of cultivating confidence in my own journey has been about releasing the perception of what it is to be a great coach in terms of how I am perceived by others in relation to my own stuff and my own life. So very early on, and this was kind of a subtle thing in the background, that I was noticing that I felt this very subconscious, almost like silent pressure of having to have a perfect life, having to have all my relationships, my marriage, my career at the time when I just started, everything that had to be perfect. I had to be the perfect human with the perfect relationships, with the perfect life, with the perfect career, because I subconsciously felt that my life had to be an example and was directly correlated to what kind of coach I would be. And this one, actually, that took a lot of work, and to be really honest, it is still taking a bit of work, because it still shows up, this narrative, this pattern that I've been witnessing for the last few years now is still showing up. And that is a really big one in terms of how it can impact coaching confidence, and certainly at the start it did for me, because when things in life felt a bit wobbly, when maybe things in my marriage or maybe socially or in my career weren't so great, I was feeling a sense of shame, and I felt like I needed to hide that part of myself because I wanted to be perceived as a powerful, confident, great coach, quote unquote perfect coach. And so I know now that hiding those parts of my journey and myself did not do me any good, and was absolutely not in service of how I held space for my clients. And also, it just simply didn't serve me or my clients. And it's something that I still today come across.
Oh, yes, I see it and come across this as well, Marlous, because hashtag human, which of course we all are, and we all live in a world where we're being influenced by systemic oppressions and our own internalized oppression every single day in varying different ways. And we know that one of the most pervasive impacts of things such as capitalism, patriarchy, hierarchical leadership, white supremacy, and so much more is this, in varying different filtered versions, you must be exemplary, you must be perfect, you cannot make mistakes, you can't show quote unquote weakness or vulnerability, or you will be judged, and let's face it, some of us have. Some of us have had moments in life where we have been low and down and vulnerable, and we've been kicked while we have been there, and that's a trauma, and that is something that can live and rest with us for a very long time. But it does not then necessarily, of course, equate with, well, the antidote to that is to be perfect and then you'll never be kicked or you'll never be criticized or you'll never be judged, because guess what? You can absolutely be those things when you are quote unquote perfect or good or all of those things. And so there's so much humanness that exists within this industry, and I'm glad for that. Marlous, let's now talk deeper about cultivating coaching confidence. I feel like we're already doing that in a way through, hearing more about your own story. But where you are now with your coaching is you are now a coach for coaches. You are also, as I said at the top of this episode, a trainer with us. And so you are intimately working with new and emerging coaches in particular all the time. And one of the things I know that you are, of course, passionate about is helping them cultivate their coaching confidence. So I'd love to hear from you now a little bit more about what are the core things. If there was 2 to 3 really core things that you felt were just so necessary for any new and emerging coach to focus on so they could cultivate their coaching confidence, what would be your heartfelt recommendations to them to focus on?
Wow, just 2 or 3. Gosh, Julie, you're making this hard.
Well, I feel like you've already mentioned one, which is really,
Yeah.
you've mentioned 2 actually. One is about, releasing control and unraveling from pressure. And the other one is about letting go of this notion of perfect. So I feel like which is just so important, because if we're fixated on that, then we're fixated on all the wrong things when it comes to being that vessel to hold space for our clients. But what are some others in the mix that you want to bring in for us?
Yeah, definitely. The first one that came to mind as you asked the question is to start before you feel 100% ready. And that, kind of following on from that thread of how perfectionism can get in the way, this idea of starting before you feel 100% ready is so important for emerging coaches, well, for any coach, but really particularly when you're starting off as a coach. And I see this with clients all the time, is that we tend to think that we have to have maybe just one more course or one more skill or one more condition or one more thing to line up before we can make the ask, before we can show up and share our services, before we can press post or go live on the website or content, before we can make a connection with someone that you feel could be just a beautiful connection to start off with. But I think there is so much pressure around the things have to be fully aligned, or they have to be in the perfect conditions, or they have to feel right. I think we sometimes can confuse this feeling of alignment with, that's, everything always has to feel aligned or always has to feel comfortable, or that you feel that there is a sense of readiness before you can take action to grow your coaching confidence, or start building your business foundations, or simply grow and expand from where you are now to where you want to be. So that's the first tip that I would invite everyone to really think about. What does it mean to lean into courage and to start before you feel 100% ready. The second one, I talked about this a little bit before, but the second one would be to really focus on owning our own stuff, owning our uniqueness. And so, as I mentioned a little bit, what do I think a great coach needs to be, and then letting go of that perception. But what that really is about is also owning the things that I think I need to hide. Like, what parts am I denying? What parts am I not tending to, but am, subconsciously or maybe even very consciously present to, that just keep popping up in my life and in my coaching, and as I'm trying to achieve the things that I deeply desire. And this is all about tending to oneself, our healing. You talked about some of those social constructs that can have an impact on how we might be in the world, or what we think, how we are perceived, or how we perceive ourselves to be. And so that aspect of owning your uniqueness, which is, your lived experiences beyond your professional skills, beyond just, the expertise that you can bring as a professional or as a coach, but the lived experiences that really have meaning and impact in your current life, in your day-to-day life, in your relationships, because undoubtedly they're going to impact your coaching, your business, and your confidence. So that is an ongoing, I'm learning, that's an ongoing journey of never ending healing, really. But it's beautiful. It's both a beautiful journey and also, ongoing work that I see us as coaches needing to be devoted to, because it impacts the space we hold, it impacts our confidence. At any given session, something can pop up in your field that is related to your journey. And if that feels wobbly, it could impact, the coaching space and your client. And so it's really important that we first start with ourselves and own our lived experiences, our uniqueness, and our own stuff. And that is really in, being rooted and grounded and centered around your ways and aspects of being, and understanding the boundaries and radical self-care and radical self-responsibility that is required to do that. Then can I add one more thing? You said two, but I have another thing that I would love to.
You sure can. Of course you can. Just keep rolling is wonderful.
And so the third thing is, I talked about this a little bit already, is to just get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Discomfort, and I know this from my own personal journey, Julie, is that especially at the start when I was trying to take control and conduct the session, that was really me not being able to have a healthy relationship with being with discomfort, with being with anxiety, with being with vulnerability, with being with not knowing, being with trusting that not everything is in my control and I can't project into the future how things are going to be. And so learning how to be with discomfort and see that as part of your own process of how you be and who you are as a coach, but as a human too, is so invaluable, because it flows into everything in your life, not just in your coaching or your business building. Like the way you are with vulnerability will show up in, whether or not you would press post or go live on something that requires courage, that requires for you to be seen and possibly, feel the fear of being rejected or judged or criticized, like you so beautifully talked about before. And that discomfort, I think we sometimes, again, can kind of see as, discomfort is wrong because it means it's not easeful, it's not in flow, it's not aligned. But actually, I use the analogy of like a wall. I use the analogy of a wall when we are considering ourselves growing as a coach, and, we take steps towards it and then we hit a wall. And what I used to do at the start is go around the wall, try and find an easier pathway and just avoid the wall is the discomfort, to avoid the wall because there's got to be another way, until I realized now very well that the wall is actually our teacher, and that it's not to rush to the end, but rather honor this teacher, this discomfort, and really be with that and really get to know it in a way that is going to serve you, even though it might not feel like it at the time. And probably it will never feel like that, to be honest. But it has so much wisdom, it has purpose. And so being with the discomfort, like it's moving through that, it's slowly chipping away at it, not too hard to pressure yourself so that, you know, you might hurt yourself if you hit the wall too hard, but almost like, I want to say like dance with it, you know, until you slowly can soften that. Yeah. And then that's where you then catch, you know, another wave of momentum. But that getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is probably one of the most important things that I see we need to, you know, continuously and ongoingly develop as coaches and space holders.
I entirely agree with you, Marlous, because the fact is that in all touch points of life, when we are even just a little bit uncomfortable, that is where we grow. That is where we learn new things about ourselves and our capacity for what it is that we can do. You know, nobody wants to say, you know, wildly pushy or aggressive things like you've got to be out of your comfort zone all the time and all that sort of stuff, because that is dysregulating to the max. But at the same time, little bits of being outside of what is usual, what is known to us, what is comfortable to us, is really the only way that we can grow as a human being, let alone as a coach and a business owner. And ultimately, in the end, as coaches, when we're asking our clients to stretch and challenge themselves all the time, if we're not prepared to do those things for us, then that speaks volumes, I think, about work that we need to look at and do. Marlous, thank you so much for your heartfelt words and suggestions around cultivating coaching confidence today. You are such a brilliant and wonderful coach, and I'm just delighted to have had you on the show.
Thank you so much, Julie. It's just been an honor to be here and have this amazing conversation. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And we could just go on for such a long time, that as we're finishing up, I do just want to let everyone know, because of course, everyone that listens to this podcast, I think in some way or another, or at least most people, are either thinking about becoming a coach, or they're already training to become a coach, or they're already a coach. So coaching and coaches are very, very front of mind. And I want to let you all know that Marlous, at her website, and of course all the details will be a part of this episode on our website, has the most incredible free guide that you can access at her website. It is for new and emerging coaches. It is called the Essential Guide to Ignite Your Coaching Business. I happen to have been fortunate enough to have seen the inside of this beautiful guide. And if you have loved, you know, Marlous's incredibly soulful, gentle, but also powerful content and the way she expresses herself today, you will love that guide. And I can't recommend that you go to Marlous's website and download it enough. It is beautiful, and it's highly actionable and useful as well. So everyone, there's your big tip for today. Something you want to do for yourself. Get yourself to Marlous's website and download that guide. Marlous, thank you so much again for being with us.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thanks, everyone.